Good evening, and thank you all for joining us on Facebook Live for tonight's exclusive News Channel 9 candidate forum for District 8. I'm your moderator for tonight, Faran. Now, this is the seat vacated by City Rep Courtney Nyland and covers much of downtown El Paso, as well as some of the West Side and the Upper Valley. Tonight, the 5 candidates running for her open seat are here with me. I'll be asking them questions, as well as you, via our Facebook Live feed, also on Twitter using the hashtag NC9Vote. So to start things off tonight, I'll have the 5 candidates introduce themselves, as well as a little bit about themselves and why they're running to represent for District 8. We'll start with you, Mr. Lopez.
Yes, my name is Adolfo Lopez. I'm a local attorney. I was born and raised in El Paso. My mother had me when she was 19 years old. I went to Faith Christian Academy. I went to St. Mary's for undergrad. I then came back to El Paso. I worked as a substitute teacher, a server, a busser, and during that time, I got my MBA at UTEP. From there, I went to a small law school in Seattle, Washington. I then worked with the Dallas County District Attorney's Office for 4 years, then opened up my own legal practice. I've been a solo practitioner, focusing on criminal defense for 3 years. Moved back to El Paso 2 years ago. Last year, I ran for state representative for District 77, which overlaps much of it with District 8. During that time, I block walked the entirety of District 77 and got to know the majority of the constituents in District 77. And I believe we do need to alleviate property taxes on many of our homeowners. That was one of the things I ran across when I was block walking. I believe the transparency and ethical concerns of City Council is something I am afforded as an attorney to be very knowledgeable on, and that's something where the other 7 City Council members, along with the mayor, may not have as much of a legal background, but that's something that is a strength that I have, and that's something that I believe that I bring to City Council. Along with my heritage here in El Paso and my experience overall, I believe that for those reasons I am the best candidate for District 8.
All right, Mrs. Lizarraga. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay, good.
Hi, my name is Sissy Lizarraga. Thank you, Channel 9, for inviting us here today. I am ready to serve as an accountable, ethical leader in District 8. I am proud of my deep roots in El Paso, in particular District 8. I was born at Hotel Dieu, attended St. Patrick's and Loretto Academy, worked at my father's business in South El Paso. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in education from UTEP and a master's degree in education from the University of Texas at El Paso. I am a retired educator in the public system, and I am a mother of 3 beautiful, successful women. I'm a grandmother, a wife for 41 years, and a concerned citizen. And that's why I'm running to represent you in District 8. I'm a consensus builder also, with the courage to speak out when needed. But more importantly, I am a great listener. I'm a fiscal conservative, and I will work hard to watch our tax dollars. My name is Sissy Lizarraga, and I want to represent you in District 8.
All right, Mr. Guillen.
Faran, good evening. I grew up here in El Paso in the same house that we've always been to. I've lived downtown. I'm a graduate of Cathedral High School, and I'm a graduate of UT El Paso. Since as far back as I can remember, I've been involved in my community. I was the first vice president at the Hispanic Chamber, the assistant vice president at the Greater Chamber, the president and CEO of the United Way of Southern New Mexico, and the president and CEO of the BHI, that entity that helped develop the area for the new medical school. And for the past few years, I was retired until I started seeing what was going on with City Council. I started seeing the disarray, the misinformation, the perceived corruption that happens in our City Council. And you get to a point where you just kind of get a little bit fed up. We're the highest tax county in all of Texas. And in America, of those counties of our size, we're amongst the top 4%. We pay the highest electric rates in the state of Texas, and they still want to raise our rates some more. And you just see the way City Council has been operated. You see the administration. For some reason, there's a refusal to listen to the citizens of El Paso and to the other politicians. For example, with the arena, Everyone is telling them that it doesn't go there. 98% of all the people who went to the arena meetings that were touted around throughout the city voiced their opinion of not to put it downtown, and yet the city still persists. I believe that city council exists to serve all of El Paso, not just a few individuals, but all of El Paso. And for this reason, I'm running for city council.
All right, Mr. Guillen, thank you. And Mr. Cormel.
I'm Robert Cormel. Thank you for having us tonight. Really appreciate that. I'm a business owner. For many, since the age of 16, I started my first business. For over 30 years, I know what it is to run and operate a business. 20 years ago, we started a nonprofit organization on the east side of town that works with youth and families. We've been doing that for many, many years. And a lot of those young people that we've mentored over the years live here in the city. And we believe that there's poor representation for all of El Paso. I think there's a lot of things that have gone on in the last years that have made us as a council, as the council, and as a city look bad. And I think that it's important for us to get along together as a family and realize that we're not in districts fighting for, just a parcel of land here in El Paso, but we're fighting for all of El Paso. We want to see the city thrive, and we want to see the people, the young hundreds of kids that I've mentored over the years grow up in a city that is successful and does well, and where they can raise their families and be safe and have good roads to drive on. And that's one of the reasons that I'm running. I'd love to have your vote.
All right, Mr. Cormel, thank you. And wrapping up tonight's first question, Mr. Acevedo.
Hi. Good evening, Tara, and thank you to KTSM for this opportunity to introduce our platforms, our ideas on how to fix this District 8. My name is Trini Acevedo, and I'm 47 years old. I was born and raised in District 8. I attended all of my public schools in District 8, from elementary all the way to high school. I'm a proud Bowie graduate. I also attended UTEP and obtained my bachelor's from the University of Texas at El Paso. I have a master's in public administration from Grand Canyon, and I'm currently a doctoral student in organizational leadership. I am running for District 8 because I believe that we need to start empowering our people. We need to empower our neighborhoods in order to bring progress. There's not only 2 issues in District 8, but multiple issues that need to be addressed. The arena is one. I have been one of the candidates that has always been against eminent domain and of the displacement of people. If change is going to be possible, communication is the best process. If there's no communication, then change breaks down. I believe that my contribution to City Council is bringing in what my educational background. I have worked for 27 years with the University Medical Center of El Paso as a healthcare provider, and I have 10 years as an educator at the El Paso Community College, where I think we need to start being inclusive of all the diversity that includes in District 8, such as generational diversity, cultural, and socioeconomic. My name is Trini Acevedo, and I want to be your strong voice in City Council.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Acevedo. So now on to our first question. So this vacated seat, it happened pretty abruptly. Many of the voters that we talked to in your district today, they say that they have no encouragement to go out and vote this year. And many don't know who you are because there hasn't been a long time to campaign. A lot of them also saying that they're very fed up with what they saw this year with the City Council. So, first question, how do you plan to get people to get out and vote? We'll start with you, Mrs. Lizarraga.
Well, I think people aren't going to vote because you're absolutely correct. People aren't excited about the election or about candidates and their ideas. And I do have a 5-point agenda that I have on my website and I'm excited about. The first one, of course, is safe roads and streets and road improvements, which a lot of the different races are talking about. But one of the issues that's really exciting for me is pertains to solar power and alternative energy. El Paso is the 4th sunniest, biggest city in the United States for its size. And I think we're not doing enough to to utilize our greatest resource that we have, which is the sun. And as a city council, I would serve as a voice to advocate to support and grow clean, green energy. And I would look into innovations to the prices of solar panels are tumbling down right now. And I think that we have a resource, and I would work hard to develop that resource.
Mr. Guillen, how do you plan to get people to get out and vote?
You know what? The citizens of El Paso are pretty disgusted with everything that's going on. This past election, we saw an 8% turnout, which is really, really bad. As we're doing our block walkings, I disagree a little bit because as we're talking to people, people are excited about change. People are excited about getting someone in you that's more responsible. The people that I've talked to are excited about getting someone in there that will fight and will stand up for what is right. Not someone that's manipulated by someone else or backed up by a particular special interest group, but someone that will just represent the people. And so that, I think, is going to bring out the voters in District 8 to vote this coming June 10th.
Mr. Cormel, your answer.
I think that the most we can do as a candidate is to get out and knock on those doors. You've got to put yourself in front of them, your face in front of them. They got to know you. And we've had the bagel shops for 15 years here in El Paso. And I've met a vast majority of these people that live in that area with our original bagel shop. And I think just encouraging them and saying, hey, don't give up on this process. It's important, and it's the only thing we got. And I think we'll be surprised at the turnout for this election, because I think that there are a lot of people that are, in fact, interested in this particular race, and they want to see some change. And I think I'll provide that.
Mr. Acevedo?
What a wonderful opportunity to go ahead and engage the voters of District 8, to have active participation in this process. It is just like President Obama recently stated, what you vote for is what you're going to get. If you vote and want change and want credibility and reestablish trust in your local government, you need to go with someone that has the credibility and the trust, and has also the approach of working with neighborhood associations, of empowering people and reestablishing that trust, that they have open communication at all times with their leadership, and someone that will go ahead and go back to City Council and reestablish that respect and dignity, not just amongst City Council members, but amongst all El Pasoans that go and have a voice in City Council. At all times, respect and dignity and decorum to address all the issues that not only affect District 8, but everyone in El Paso. And that is something that Trini Acevedo will deliver.
Thank you, Mr. Acevedo. And wrapping up our first question, Mr. Lopez, how do you get people to get out and vote?
Well, I don't think there's any magic pill. I think that's something El Paso's dealt with since I can remember. I wrote my paper to St. Mary's for undergrad on voter apathy. And so I do believe knocking on doors, that's a huge thing. But I do think it takes more than just that. I think it actually takes every citizen that is concerned to actually grab another person that they know is registered to vote, and literally sometimes take them and grab them and make them go vote. I have done that with my own friends. I'm sure the candidates here have done that as well. But it takes all of us to actually encourage another person until issues affect us personally, and we know that it's our vote that changes these things through changing people we're not happy with our city officials. But it's only through that that we actually affect change. We have to do it grassroots, and it's a whole citywide project. It's going to take city leaders along with the citizens to make those changes.
All right. As far as the arena project, that is one of the biggest things that has been in the news. Duranguito has been kind of the place of where they would like to put the arena, and that currently lies in your district. So where do you stand on the arena project? We'll start with you, Mr. Guillen.
You know what? The arena does not belong in that small neighborhood. It just doesn't fit. The city has contended that they want it there because of its proximity to the convention center. They can apply for tax rebates from the state controllers of up to $25 million. For those of us that understand, truly understand downtown, we know that 90% of all the retail sales in downtown is directly attributed to Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, and Mexico. And so when the Mexican shopper leaves, right before they leave, Faran, they stop at Melec, they do a manifiesto, and they get their taxes back. So there's very few tax money available that we can apply for of up to $25 million. Simply not going to work. Number two, if it was the only spot, then okay. But we know that it's not the only spot. The city owns Cohen Stadium. The city has set aside $20 million for land acquisition. By simply moving the arena to Cohen Stadium, where it fits, it has parking, and it has access to 54, we save a hard 20. Not apply for up to maybe $25 million, we save a hard 20. UT El Paso has already mentioned that they would love to team up with the city to build a grander structure over at the Asarco properties, and they would donate those properties. And yet our city council refuses to look at anything else because they're only serving a handful of people instead of looking at the whole picture for El Paso.
Where would you like to see the arena go?
Anywhere but the Union Plaza neighborhood.
Okay. Mr. Cormel?
I think I don't really like, I'm not crazy about the arena being parked there, but I think that the truth is that's already set in motion. By the time we take office, we're talking about 2.5 months down the road very easily, and I think it'll already be in motion. The thing that's going to be important is how do we manage that? Do we make sure that we get the biggest bang for the buck? What kind of people or who in the community will come and invest in that to help us complete it on time, properly, and get the best bang for our buck? So I think that's where we need to be.
So you are for keeping it in the Duranguito area?
Well, we're already there. We all know that. We know that that's already moving forward. The city's already acquiring those properties. I think it's a moot point.
For you, Mr. Acevedo?
It's a very touching subject, the arena. Having grown up, with friends from Leon Street and Durango Street that attended Bowie High School with me, and that actually reside in that area, and some of them are still there, it's a very touchy situation and subject. I believe there's a lot of area in downtown where we can go ahead and place that arena. Evidence-based research has stated that will go ahead and provide a boost to economic development, something that downtown needs. Retail, unfortunately, will not come back, and this is due to the evolution of technology. We have even seen that affect Macy's, JCPenney, Payless, and other stores. The trends of how people are buying now have changed, and we have to adapt now. We have to think outside the box, and we have to move forward. We need to move forward with change. We cannot stay stagnant. If not, our downtown's going to die. Sunland Park is already on life support, like I said, and we need to move forward. But we can only move forward if there's a leader, a voice for change, and a communicator. And that person is me, Trini Acevedo.
So to be clear, though, you're okay with the arena being in the Duranguito neighborhood?
No.
No. So you think it should be where do you think it should go?
I think there's a great slot right there in the railroad where, a lot of people have mentioned it. I think we can slate it in there. I totally support that the railroad move outside, like they had stated they were going to move out to Santa Teresa and avoid a lot of safety issues and hazards that could occur due to the railroad still being here in inner city, such as in Chihuahuita or down even by UMC. God forbid, there's a chemical spill. I mean, just to contain that spill, it would be a safety hazard.
Mr. Lopez, where do you think the arena should go? I'm
in favor for the Duranguito area. I think the big concern is eminent domain should be rarely used. However, the Prospector, UTEP's newspaper, did a 3-part study in November, and they noted that a lot of the homes there didn't even have heating. And so we're dealing, I think, with a couple of issues. With, of course, there are historical buildings down there, but honestly, all of downtown is historical, including Segundo Barrio. But we have to make sure that these people who already have homes that are dilapidated are getting stipends, which they are, and making sure that they're moved comfortably and reasonably. And so long as that is done, I believe in a synergistic effect taking place in El Paso with the ballpark. We saw that there was a lot of controversy initially with our ballpark, but I believe that has helped transform part of downtown, but it is only part of an idea. Studies go back to 2001. There is I believe it's P.L. Johnson study that noted the best area for an arena would be exactly where Duranguito is. An HKS study back in 2006 cited the same location. There's 2 independent studies done by 2 law firms, same location. There is something, I believe, going on in El Paso right now. We are going through some growing pains, but I do believe in the growth, the trolleys, the convention center, and the private investment that is going into downtown that creates the arena to have a special effect that I think will contribute to the growth of El Paso.
And finally, Mrs. Lizarraga,
yes.
Where should the arena go?
Well, first of all, I had 2 issues with the Duranguito site. The first one being the historical preservation, and the second was the displacement of the residents. But to the city's credit, they were able to take care of that without the use of eminent domain. And so now the arena, I do believe the arena should be built downtown in District 8, preferably, if it's not in Duranguito, I have heard good arguments about placing it at the Asarco site. If elected, I would not want to undo all the hard work that the City Council has done. We're losing money every day, that the project has not started, and so I believe, as Mr. Cormel stated, this is almost a done deal.
And just piggybacking off of that, we have our first Facebook Live question in from David. You were talking about historical buildings. David wants to know, how do you plan on preserving historic buildings in the downtown? And we'll start with you, Mr. Cormel.
Oh, great question. You know, we moved to the downtown area about almost 8 years ago. My wife said, got this great idea, let's go fix her up a house down there. And so in the process, we realized that when we bought our house, we'd been there about 2 days, and we kept looking across the street at a condemned house. And we're like, man, this is a wreck to walk out to every morning. And we ended up finding out how we could get a hold of that house, buy that house, and we ended up fixing it up. And it's totally original. We love that house. It's probably one of the neatest houses that we own. But since that time, we bought another house across the street that's two doors down. We've turned it into an Airbnb. And this is how you revitalize an area. You know, you don't just talk about like, hey, let's throw some money down there, but you move down there, you invest in the kids. When we moved to that area, we realized that within 300 yards, there were 5 kids that didn't have fathers. And all those kids have been in and out of our house, and we've mentored them and spent time with them. We've got them into mentor programs. And that's how you revitalize a community. You invest in it. You invest in the schools with your time. And that's what we want to do. And that's how you do.
Mr. Acevedo?
I believe in sharing, and we need to share the resources with our county and identify all those jewels that we have in the downtown. A lot of them, unfortunately, have either disappeared or their facade is falling apart. Right at the corner where McCroy's used to be. And the stories that we hear of Pancho Villa enjoying the milkshakes right there, those are things that have disappeared. And with change, I understand that there can be some demolishing, but we need to preserve what's historical. What tells the story of El Paso? What we can share with our future generations? What you all can, whenever you walk through downtown El Paso, almost live what happened in the past. We have a diverse community, such a cultural diversity that we can share, and we can always use that as an educational opportunity to teach our future generations in preservation.
Mr. Lopez, how do you plan on preserving the historic buildings downtown?
I would work with the El Paso Historical Commission. I would make sure that we are using, when we can, using private monies to do revitalization, encouraging tax abatements that don't give away the farm, but that do encourage growth, whether that be for private residences, as Mr. Cormel said. There's all through the area, the Rio Grande, Arizona area, Sunset Heights. There are many beautiful historic homes in all of downtown. The Bassett Tower is going to be redone. We've seen what the Mills building, what's been done with that building. We need to make sure that we are encouraging private investment and not put taxpayers on the hook, not using public monies, but encourage private development and working with the Historic Commission. There was a study done in 98 by the El Paso Historic Commission that identified, I think, just about every historical building, at least within the downtown area, and I want to say within the Arizona Rio Grande area and Sunset Heights. And it's working smartly, working wisely, efficiently, and I think working together with state officials, county officials, and working as a unit together. I think that's how we preserve our historical buildings.
Mrs. Lizarraga?
Well, I agree totally with what Mr. Lopez had to say. In addition, I'm a resident of Sunset Heights, which many people refer to as the heart and soul of El Paso. It's a wonderful neighborhood to be a part of. We purchased our home in 2009 and we were able to restore it. But I would also work hard to increase tax abatements for people that are working on historical preservation for residences. You have to spend at least $50,000 at a time if you're going to restore renovate a historic house in a neighborhood. And so I would also work to lower that amount.
Mr. Guillen, finally wrapping up with you.
The way to restore historic buildings is a process. In 1998, the city of El Paso, not the county, but the city of El Paso did a study in the Union Plaza district, and they submitted to the council then that Union Plaza be declared a historic neighborhood, which did not happen yet. The county of El Paso earlier this year accepted a grant in order to assess throughout all of downtown, assess an inventory of historic buildings. Once that happens, we'll create a historic overlay in the downtown area, and then we will be able to apply for the most generous funds available to do the historic buildings. Part of our challenge, though, is greed. You know, we've talked about all the studies that supposedly has picked Union Plaza as the spot, and the reality is it didn't happen. The only one that did was funded. That particular study was funded by the Paso del Norte group. And that was more of a prospectus for real estate development. They came in, they bought the properties, they have not moved on it yet. And so it's the city's role to make sure that those buildings are well taken care of based on everything, all the work that has been done up to now. The Paso del Norte, the Paso del Sur group submitted the petitions to create an overlay in the Union Plaza district. It'll go before City Council, it'll get turned down, and then they'll pick up another 2,500 signatures, and then it'll go to the voters, and the voters will decide.
And I saw, Mr. Lopez, you were shaking your head no.
Well, I was just disagreeing with some of the comments he made about the studies. I know I've read the HKS study. It's online. I mean, you can look that up. They looked at 4 sites. They looked at the business district. They looked at, and it can be a little confusing because the way they label the districts aren't what we would typically associate. So they don't call it Union Plaza. So it took a little looking through, but that's just inaccurate. That the 2001 study, I believe it's a PC or PL Johnson, and the HKS studies, they have exactly drawings of where they want to put the arena. And it is in the Duranguito area. We lose $8 million per year by not building the arena, roughly 1.4 seats per day. So when Mr. Guillen says something like that, it's just not true.
And simply, it's true, because when you look at those studies, when you sit down and you read them, you realize that the only one that actually selects Union Plaza is the one that was funded by the Paso Norte group. Which one was that? So it wasn't a study at all. It's more of a prospectus on what we can do. And isn't it ironic that those members bought properties there? And as you stated before, those houses, those apartments have not been upgraded because they're just sitting on them trying to cash in. And that's unfair. It's unfair to our people. It's unfair to our city. Anybody, the city of El Paso did a tour of the arena project through all 8 districts. And of the people who attended, on the exit interviews, 98% of them said that it doesn't belong downtown. Anyone, any clear person, any prudent person can sit there and say it doesn't work downtown. It's a 12,000-seat arena. These past couple of weekends, we've had multiple events downtown with the Chihuahuas, with the Phantom of the Opera, Comic-Con, the Mariachi Festival, and there simply is, Faran, no parking. It doesn't make sense to put an arena where it simply doesn't fit.
Now, Courtney Nyland was very big on this. Actually, there was the investigation that News Channel 9 did into the 4 city reps meeting with the mayor into violations of alleged violations of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Courtney Nyland was one of those there, and you were actually there as well, Mr. Guillen. One of my questions is, as far as dealing with the media, because it was very difficult after to reach Mrs. Nyland and talk to many of those city council, the city reps. How do you plan on handling the media when something probably doesn't go your way? And we'll start with you, Mr. Guillen.
Sure. You know what? And by the way, that wasn't necessarily a meeting. Usually when you sit at a meeting, there's dialogue, there's conversations, there's back and forth. That first meeting was more of a briefing. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how it's going to go down. We're very sorry. We'll look somewhere else.
And with all the due respect, yes, you were there as a private citizen.
Yes.
It was the city council members that were being questioned. So I'm not lumping you in that Texas Open Meetings
absolutely
investigation.
Not. But I'm just telling you what happened. It wasn't a meeting. It was a briefing. They just briefed us and said, here's our position. We're going to go ahead and take Union Plaza off the table. But number two, all our city council, in fact, all our elected officials should always be open to the media. And they should always return phone calls as best as can, and they should always sit down and meet with them. I'm a true believer of that.
Mr. Cormel.
I think that number one priority as a city rep is the people that live in that district. You're beholden to them, and they're the priority. And I think after that comes the media. You know, there will always be an open door there. And I think that is, when somebody starts avoiding the media and doesn't want to talk about an issue, I think that's one of the reasons we're in this situation with the city council, is because there's a lot of people that are avoiding just being open and honest, and I think that that's a transparency issue, and that's why we need new leadership there. I think that's why we're getting it.
Mr. Acevedo.
I think in the creation of an open door policy, not only for the constituents but also for anyone from the media. Communication. I'm a strong communicator. I believe in communication in order to obtain goals and objectives and promote change. I would have no problem, the media, going along. I'm interested in having outreach to the neighborhood associations, continue open meetings with them, and getting to learn and understand their issues within each neighborhood. Because until you bring that to the table, until you bring that to city council, it's not the vested interest of Trini Acevedo. It's the vested interest of every stakeholder within District 8 and every constituent of El Paso. And that's what Trini Acevedo would do.
Mr. Lopez, how do you plan on handling the media?
Honestly, transparency. I mean, you can't be politicians, you have to be leaders. We can't. We're going to be making difficult decisions, and those decisions have to be based on logic and reason. And if we base our constituents, it always has to be putting El Paso and our constituents first. And if we do those things, sure, sometimes we're going to have to make difficult decisions that not everyone will agree with. But you have character, you have a backbone, and you stick to your guns if you believe it and you have reasons why you're doing this. And you explain it to the citizens, you explain it to the media. I think forums like this, I had never seen forums like this growing up, where KTSM is doing, we're streaming live. I think many politicians, many people are afraid of speaking to the media because sometimes we only get sound bites. But I think forums like this, we get to hear a full-length message, not just a little sound bite. People who care and informed citizens are watching right now. And I would like to see more things like this in El Paso. And I think it's great what KTSM is doing. I want to see everyone do this, every news channel. I would love to see, op-eds in the El Paso Times. Get the city council members involved. It's about communication. It's about being honest, and it's about not being a politician, but being a leader.
Mrs. Lizarraga.
Yes, I agree with all the candidates' statements. I will be an accountable, ethical leader, and I think I will have an open door policy and treat everyone with dignity and respect, including the media.
Good to know. So I got a yes from all 5 of you. Good to know. Okay, so we started with the arena project. Now let's move up Mesa Street a little bit to another controversial project, and it's the Shadow Mountain Towers. They have been very controversial in the sense that many say that the buildings are too tall to people on the west side along Mesa, and that it will change the skyline along with obstructing the view of many who live on the west side. So what is your opinion on the Shadow Mountain Towers, and how do you plan on dealing with this controversial project with your constituents? We'll start with you, Mr. Acevedo.
Once again, this is something that was introduced to the area, and once again, the lack of communication failed. It just failed. Communication failed to introduce change. I see it as a wonderful opportunity, as a tool to bring economic development into that area. It's going to promote jobs. It's going to promote growth. We're the 6th largest city in Texas, and we have to continue growing. Unfortunately, there's going to be pains and aches with traffic, with growth, but we have to maintain, and we have to stay in that focus that we are growing as a city, and we need to bring in jobs. We need to bring in infrastructure that will provide that strong economic development. Just a few blocks down, we have, like I said, Sunland Park Mall. That is a ghost town already. And we need to establish jobs for people that are graduating from UTEP or that are still studying here at UTEP, and give them opportunities. And we expect places like that that are being developed to provide good paying jobs, good benefits, and ample opportunities to all the residents of El Paso.
Mr. Cormel?
I'm not crazy about that. I always try, in situations like this, I would try and put the people that I'm representing, put myself in their shoes. And, you know, one of the great things that we have is a beautiful skyline here in El Paso. You know, you look out in the evenings, you can see the sunset, and, you know, you see the mountains. And when something is built like that right in a neighborhood like that, I don't think it's very helpful. I think that I've talked to a lot of people that live in that area. We've been knocking on doors there, and there are a lot of people that are concerned. You know, it's have somebody 21 floors above you looking down into your yard and where your kids are at, and you know, especially with drones and everything. You know, it's like the privacy is already being attacked there, and I think there's a lot of people that are concerned about that in that area, and rightfully so. I would be concerned too.
Mr. Guillen?
Isn't it ironic that we want to protect one neighborhood on the west side, and yet most of these people are willing to destroy El Paso's first neighborhood? The Union Plaza district, Duranguito, was the first neighborhood, el primer barrio, which is why we have a segundo barrio. So to answer the question for all of District 8 is that all of our neighborhoods need protection, not just the west side because of a skyline, but downtown, the Arizona area, all the way down to Buena Vista Street. All of our neighborhoods need protection. And so I would not probably vote for that type of development in that neighborhood.
Mrs. Lizarraga?
Well, I am in favor of the decision to permit the construction of the building.
And why?
Well, I think it's already a done deal.
Mm-hmm. As far as those, though, that are against it, that live in that area, that say, like, you know, Mr. Cormel had said, 21 floors up looking down into your yard, what will you say to your constituents?
Well, it's going to bring in jobs and infrastructure. I will always have an open door policy to listen to the concerns of my constituents and take that into consideration. Mr.
Lopez?
So I have to admit, I haven't read the studies on the towers, but just as I approach the arena, I would want to make sure that it's feasible, that it's bettering the city. But there are legitimate concerns, and it doesn't matter to me whether it's Duranguito or all of El Paso matters, period. So we have to analyze it similar ways as far as, does this promote what we want in our city? I prefer to see areas such as Sunland Park or the rail yards or you know, areas such as the Arizona Rio Grande area be invested in. those are concerns, and I think those are legitimate concerns where there is privacy concerns, but we do want to see infrastructure. We do want to see growth in El Paso. Well, we are going to deal with growth no matter what. It's just, are we going to deal with it wisely, or are we going to allow, whether it is commercial groups or anybody, or are we going to do this unwisely? So it is something that I want to give a well thought out answer, but without reading the studies, I don't think that that's fair. So what I do vow to do is to make sure that I do research, I do talk to the citizens, and make a decision based on information.
And, we're talking about developments, and, Mr. Lopez, you said that El Paso is growing, and it definitely is. You have two developments. You have, at least with District 8, it's a span of the downtown development and then the west side development. Two major opposite ends of the spectrum here. So starting with you, Mrs. Lizarraga, how do you plan on finding that balance of bringing businesses to two different areas that are both in your district?
Well, that's a great question. In talking to business people during my campaign, I think one of the things they mentioned most about investors wanting to come to El Paso has to do with the decorum that they're seeing, the lack of decorum that they've seen at City Council. And so I think in order for investors to bring businesses to District 8, I would begin by leading by example, by treating everyone with dignity and respect, and including colleagues, and especially at City Council. And I'm a consensus builder, and I would resolve to do those issues at City Council. I was a testing coordinator at one of the largest high schools in El Paso, and in that capacity I had to learn how to get along with administrators, teachers, students, parents, support staff. And I believe that that's one of the things I bring to the table. I have a personality that I'm able to get along with people, and I think I bring balance to this district. It's a very diverse district. We have some of the richest people in the district living on the west side, and some of the poorest people in the neighborhood live in District 8 also. And I bring compassion. I would be able to respond to both communities and both cultures, and that's what I would do.
Mr. Guillen, how do you plan on promoting both the downtown and the west side?
You know what? I think that the apartment building that we're talking about is not going to bring really good jobs for UTEP students. I think it'll bring different levels of jobs, and you know what? It simply doesn't belong there. El Paso has a lot of real estate. When you drive out to the other districts, you just see an abundance of land that particular project might be better suited at instead of ruining that nice neighborhood over there. Same thing with the arena. It just doesn't make sense to put it there. If it was the only choice, it'd be good, but we have so many other choices. When you go out to the far east side, when you go out to the lower valley, when you go out to anywhere else, the northeast, we've got so much real estate in El Paso, it's just incredible that we keep cramming everything in there. We need to expand our tax base, and we need to do it wisely, because if we don't bring in more jobs into our city, it's going to be hard for us. And I know people want high-paying jobs. And here's the reality, though. When you talk to the people who own businesses, when you talk to the people who operate factories, the generation coming up isn't that well equipped. Some of them walk in to apply for a job. They don't bring a pen. They don't know how to do an application. So it's really challenging for us. And then you have the other people, the regular people that we know, the ones that just need a job, period. You know, it's hard. I was talking to a single mom yesterday where she had to choose between paying the water bill or paying the electric bill because there simply aren't enough jobs in El Paso. And sometimes you're just hurting for it, and sometimes you just got to take a job. Thank you.
Mr. Cormel?
I think a lot of what we're seeing with Sunland Park Mall and that transfer is a supply and demand thing. And I think one of the things as a leader, I would like specifically to meet with the large business owners here on a quarterly basis, have a meeting together where we can sit down and talk about the issues that they're facing and how is the city supporting them, coming along, rallying alongside of them, and what are we making easier for you, and what are we doing well, and what are we not doing well. And I think in order for us to attract industry here, we've got to be servicing the people that we're taking care of right now. Without that, nobody's going to come and give somebody a good recommendation on bring your business here. And that's what we really need. So in order to do that, we have to have a dialogue with those corporations that are here right now. What can we do? How can we help you build your business? Because when they do well, ultimately we as a city are going to do well, and it's going to alleviate the tax pressures on the homeowners.
Mr. Acevedo?
We need to provide big business whenever we go out and we sell our city, and we invite them that we're open for business as a city, that we have a clear direction as to where we're headed in local government. If there's no decorum and no respect and dignity and no clear vision and mission towards what we want in the future years for El Paso, then big business will think it over. We must make everyone accountable. Every player that's going to be playing in this playing field, we must make them accountable that they're going to provide good jobs for the people of El Paso. We also need to invite small business, and we need to build on what we have and take from the experience. Mr. Rosen from Texas Store in downtown, Mr. Martin Silva from Silva Supermarket, how have they survived downtown? I know it's hard, and hard times are coming. There's a lot of things that we have no control of. The evolution of technology, the peso devaluation, the long lines on the bridge. A lot of factors contribute to our economy as a border city. So we need to bring all of those things to the table, but how can we partner with big business and small business in improving the quality of life of every El Pasoan?
And finally, to wrap things up, Mr. Lopez, how do you plan on promoting the downtown and the west side?
I think Mr. Acevedo and Mr. Cormel both touched on it. I think it's working with small businesses, and I think it's also working with large businesses, and being strategic about how we approach each project. Each area of town is different, and we have to work with each business in its own unique way, to make sure that we are utilizing each potential area. But I do believe that we encourage business here. We have to let corporations know that we are open for business. El Paso is open for business. That we do want to give, we mentioned it earlier, tax abatements, and that is to small businesses along with large businesses. We want to see innovation. We want to see the city's strategic plan that's worked with, I believe it's the Borderplex Alliance regional plan as well, where they've kept jobs here from Fred Loya Insurance Company. They've kept jobs, they got Indigo Hotel here. We want to see a plan working together again with county officials, state officials, and city officials, working together with the business community, small and large, in order, because no one person has the complete answer. It's us as a group together, working together, that we can come up with these solutions.
And we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to give you guys each 2 minutes for kind of a closing statement. 2 times 5 is 10, so a good 10 minutes left. But the final question is, how are you going to be, our final question comes from Jaime. How are you going to be the same or different than Courtney Nyland, who you will be replacing, and why should the voter vote for you? And we'll start with you, Mr. Acevedo.
The difference will be that I will be accessible to the people. I will be accessible to the neighborhood associations. I want to promote change, but with communication, using all of the educational components that I have been able to gather throughout my educational journey, of having that master's in public administration and now working in that doctoral in organizational leadership. I have those components that are required to be a good and effective leader in city council. Once my previous experience of working with CDBG as a chairman and working with neighborhood associations and addressing projects that have been completed and they're on the books, that I was able to push them forward when I was appointed by Beto O'Rourke, our congressman. There's a lot of projects that were completed not only in the south side but also in Montoya and throughout the city of El Paso that have improved the quality of life of each and every El Pasoan.
Mr. Cormel?
First of all, the big difference is I'm a guy, she's a girl. But think we could all use some laughs tonight. But anyways, thank you for having us here. But I think right now what we need is somebody that has business experience, somebody that understands whether it's running a small business or a large business, what it's like to make payroll. And I think that we've been void of that down there. We need somebody that has common sense about approaching. They need to be able to relate well. I know there's a lot of bashing for, it's easy to bash on people that are downtown that have bought these buildings and they haven't, you know, they're working on it and stuff. But what I can say for the people that are doing that, they're at least investing in that area, and they're putting out a lot of money to do it. And it's no different than me putting a small chunk on a couple houses on Arizona or doing that. But I think what we tend to forget is we want to bash that person or this idea or that idea, and we got to understand that we're a community, we're El Paso, we're a whole group, and we have to stop looking at saying, well, that person's bad, this person's good, and I'm going to do it better than that. We need to say, hey, together. I mean, for Courtney, I feel bad that she had to step down for those reasons. She's going through a difficult time and needs a lot of prayer and support during that time. But I think for us, setting up here and saying, well, I'm not going to be like her. What I can tell you is I'm going to be like what I've always been. I've served the community. We've worked with thousands of youth here in El Paso. We love the city. We love the whole city, not just a part of it. And we want to see it represented well in class. And I think that we can put a city council together that looks like that and encourage people to come out and vote and encourage people to be a part of the process. And that's what I like to do. And that's why I like to be this next city rep for District 8.
Mr. Cormel, thank you. And Mr. Guillen, how do you plan on being the same or different than Courtney Nyland? And why should the voter vote for you?
You know what? With regard to the downtown buildings, there is no investment. People are buying them and just sitting on them. Isn't it funny how the richest families in El Paso own those buildings, and yet they've left them and they've allowed them to become eyesores and dilapidated? And then if any one of us in here allows the grass to grow on the city sidewalk in front of our house, we get nailed immediately. And so the difference between myself and Courtney would be that I will return phone calls. I will be out answering the doors to everyone. You know, Courtney was notorious for only talking to the rich guys and never to the small businesses as you walk down Delta. You mentioned the difference between, are we going to develop the west side and the downtown? And that's fine, but District 8 is so much more. We have businesses from Fox Plaza all the way through Central, through the left side of Five Points, and then the Donovan corridor. So, and then all along Mesa on the left side. So it's an entire process that we would have to look at. And we would work with them, we would do the sidewalk sessions, and I would absolutely positively return phone calls and visit with everyone, not just the rich people.
Mrs. Lizarraga?
Yes. As I mentioned before, I think I bring balance to this race. I am comfortable with both communities, with both cultures, and I think I could represent both well. I feel comfortable walking into Sacred Heart as I do walking into Whole Foods. I am a person of my word. I am a hard worker. I will bring accountable, ethical leadership to District 8. I'm a member of the Sunset Neighborhood Improvement Association, and when we had set up a meeting with Courtney, and she was supposed to show up, I know firsthand, I have firsthand experience when a representative is invited and communicates to that organization that they're going to show up and then does not show up. So I am a person of my word. I'm a hard worker. I'm methodical and organized, and I'm a detailed-oriented person, and I will treat everyone with dignity and respect.
Mr. Lopez, to wrap things up, how do you plan to be the same or different from Courtney Nyland, and why should the voter vote for you?
Well, I can't speak for Courtney as far as differences, but what I can tell you is that it's about being, again, not being a politician. It's about being a leader. It's not about Adolfo Lopez. It's about El Paso. It's about us. And so I've been fortunate in my life. I got an education, and I'm a lawyer. And I'm an adversarial lawyer. So every day I deal with negotiations. When I was a prosecutor and now as a criminal defense attorney. Sometimes you deal with difficult people, but on city council, it's never about personally attacking someone. That's immature. It has no place in government. And what I can promise you is that I will work to bring everyone together. I've come from the Lower Valley. My great-grandparents, I spent time in Segundo Valle growing up. I lived in Central as soon as I got back to El Paso. I live in Sunset Heights. I spent time in the West Side. I've walked the Northeast. It's about uniting. It's about bringing us together in a very special time in our city. And it's about not being obstructionist, but about being someone who is an optimist, but being logical and reasonable, and not wasting our funds, being wise. And that's what I'm very excited. I believe that this new city council, it's a majority is going to be new. New mayor, I believe it's going to be a total of 5 city council members. It's an exciting period, and we have the ability to really push El Paso to its limits, to where we want to see it go. We're not going to be stuck in the past. We got to move to the future. And at the end of the day, it's about putting El Paso first, and that's it.
All right, well, the 5 candidates, thank you so much for joining us tonight. That is all the time that we have for tonight's District 8 City Rep Forum. Remember, early voting starts May 30th, and it ends on June 6th with the election day for your District 8 rep, along with the mayoral runoff on June 10th. A big thanks again to all of our 5 candidates. Again, we have Gilbert Guillen, Robert Cormel, Sissy Lizarraga, Adolfo Lopez, and Trinidad Acevedo. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm your moderator, Faran Franzak, and we will see you back here on air and on Facebook Live for News Channel 9 at 10. Have a good night.